Welcome to Newspresso. Here is the top story in the past 6 hours. He's quietly funding Oregon's college football. He's quietly funding Oregon's track. He's quietly funding Oregon's basketball. He's quietly funding Oregon's other sports. He's been quietly funding these sports for years. He is putting his wealth into programs on the same soil. He is putting his wealth where his company started. Most people know him as the generous benefactor. He keeps his face off the front page. He rarely gives interviews. He let Ben Affleck play him in the film Air. The former shoe mogul stepped into a different arena, the political one. He made history. Knight sent $3 million to bring balanced PACs. That amount is the largest given to Republican candidates or political committees in the state's history. Knight, net worth tops $30 billion, has money, and he chose to do it quietly. He didn't shout about it on Twitter. He didn't give a press conference. He simply let the PAC know he was on board. The donation went out the same day. The choice of the PAC is telling. Bring Balance to Salem has a clear goal. Help Republicans win seats in Oregon legislature. With the state's balance tipped toward Democrats, Knight's money could help level the playing field, at least for a few elections. He's not the only big donor in Oregon's political landscape, but no one has pulled out such a large sum in a single move. What's interesting is that Knight has been careful to keep his public persona separate from his private belief. The study found that individuals who engaged in regular moderate-intensity aerobic exercise tended to have lower levels of the inflammatory biomarker interleukin-6 compared to sedentary controls. This association was most pronounced in participants with high baseline CBI reactive protein levels. The findings suggest that aerobic exercise may exert anti-inflammatory effects in individuals with elevated baseline inflammation. The study also examined the impact of exercise on other inflammatory markers such as tumor necrosis factor alpha and interleukin-1. No significant changes were observed in those markers following the exercise intervention. The researchers concluded that aerobic exercise may have a selective effect on specific inflammatory pathways. The researchers also found that the effects of exercise on interleukin-6 varied across different age groups. The greatest reduction in interleukin-6 was observed in older adults aged 65 to 75 years, followed by middle-aged adults 45 to 55 years, and the smallest change was seen in younger adults 20 to 35 years. The study included a diverse sample of 200 adults aged 20 to 75 years, recruited from 5 community health centers across the United States. Participants were randomly assigned to either a moderate-intensity aerobic exercise group or a sedentary control group. The exercise group engaged in a 12-week program consisting of 45 minutes of aerobic exercise 3 times per week. Exercise intensity was monitored using heart rate monitors and was set at 50% to 70% of heart rate reserve. Blood samples were collected at baseline and at the conclusion of the 12-week intervention. Inflammatory markers, including interleukin-6, C-reactive protein, tumor necrosis factor alpha, and interleukin-1D, were measured using enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay techniques. And while the Republican Party has historically been a partner for business leaders, Knight's move shows a willingness to push his state's politics in a different direction, perhaps reflecting his belief in fiscal responsibility or individual liberty. The reaction in Oregon has been mixed. Some applaud Knight for using his wealth to support a minority party, arguing it helps democracy by giving voters more options. Others criticize him, saying he's tipping the political scales with a single, massive donation. Either way, the impact of that $3 million will be felt in the upcoming primary elections, as the PEC will have more resources to run ads, field staff, and support candidates who align with its goals. Looking ahead, the state legislature will be watching closely. If the Republicans gain seats, it could change how state policies on everything from education funding to environmental regulations are shaped. For Knight, the story may be a way to finally express his political leanings in a concrete, high-stakes way after years of staying behind the scenes in sports and business. The $3 million donation will likely be remembered as a pivotal moment in Oregon's recent political history, and it may inspire other wealthy donors to consider how they can influence the state's direction. The final word on this story is that Phil Knight's $3 million donation marks the most significant Republican contribution in Oregon history, and it sets the stage for a potentially transformative shift in the state's political landscape. Subscribe Newspresso. Never miss a major global headline.